Well, we're continuing on with Focus today, and we're actually going to open up the phone lines and let you join in. With me on the phone already this morning is our good buddy Bob Just, but I want to give you a chance to join the conversation. The phone number is 776-5368, again 776-5368, or you can go at 1-800-373-5368. Bob, are you there?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Perry.
Hey, buddy, how are you, man?
Fine. How are you doing?
You know, it's Friday, and Fridays are always wonderful.
Yeah, that's right.
I got several things I want to go over with you, and again, say to our listeners and viewers, you're more than welcome to join the conversation. Bob, he took a hiatus from us because he got this brainstorm of an idea to become a politician. And but I want to commend you, all kidding aside. You ran a terrific race, and you ran the campaign, Bob, that I think a lot of future candidates need to take a serious look at. You ran it above board, you didn't sling mud, you didn't fight back, and you barely lost this thing by 56 votes?
58 votes out of over 34,000. Pretty amazing.
It is. And as a guy that lost by 741 on a much bigger district, but who's counting, right?
That's incredibly close. People have to stop and think. 740. That's incredibly close.
Yeah.
I had a few people tell me that it was a 50-50 race. They thought, and I know one friend who's very politically savvy like you told me he thought the race would be within 1,500 votes. So that shows people how close yours was in a congressional race.
Well, you were 58 votes away.
58 votes.
That's just unbelievable. But again, it was the style of campaign that you ran that I want to commend you on, because I think people are tired of mudslinging. I think people are tired of bickering. I think people are tired of having conversations and then having people step on them and they can't even complete a sentence. That whole idea of communication, even in media and in campaigns, I think has run its course. You ran a clean campaign. You ran a very honorable campaign. And if you feel like the Lord's calling you to do it in the future, you're obviously set up to keep going. Well done, my friend.
Thank you.
Well done. Well, listen, a couple things I want to talk to you about. First of all, the news yesterday is Senator DeMint has decided to resign from the U.S. Senate and go over and become head of the Heritage Foundation, which, by the way, is a great place for him to go.
It is.
It's just fantastic. But, man, what a loss on the U.S. Senate during a time that's so critical.
It is a terrible loss for the Senate. There's no way around it. He's a great conservative, a gentle spirit, a good, solid intellect. But you know what? Heritage needs leadership. Fuellner is stepping down, and he's, I think, 71 years old. And he told his board 3 years ago that they better start looking to the future. And I think DeMint is a perfect choice. He's got a public relations background. Heritage is a think tank, and a lot of people are thinking, gee, the big difference between being in the most elite club in the world of 100 senators that make decisions that can change our lives and approve Supreme Court justices and all of that, to go over to a think tank. What can a think tank do? Well, you know what? If the American people had been better educated about the core issues of the campaign in 2012, I think Romney would have won. So, educating the American public is a pretty crucial thing.
Well, a couple questions come out of this. What do you think will happen to his seat? Do you know who may be lined up for that? Because that becomes a governor appointment, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And there's a conservative Republican, and it's going to be, I've forgotten his name, the guy that's been recommended is an African-American guy who's a pretty, solid conservative and a young guy, and I've seen him a few times on Fox. He seems very credible. So I think he's the likely choice. I just can't remember his name. But,
yeah.
They'll come up with someone good. I mean, the key is that it's going to be appointed by a conservative Tea Party Republican governor. That would be the key. I don't think he would have left if
And then it goes to ratification through the party. I think I kind of remember the process, because you always had that on standby as a chairman in case something happened. But fortunately, I didn't have to deal with that. So, well, Bob, I'm watching the debate in Washington like you are with the fiscal cliff. Now they want to soften it and call it the fiscal slope. You know, and it doesn't seem to be any kind of a compromise, or perhaps the Republicans now have overplayed their hand and they're going to shut down. It appears to me at the moment, just as a snapshot look at it, the game now is, how can we blame the other side for going over the cliff? Is that how you see it?
Yeah, there's some real subtleties in this. I mean, there's some people, credible people, saying that the cliff is more of a Washington, D.C. concept, that Americans, like Rush Limbaugh's talking about, that that Republicans need to hold to their principles of see. The tough thing is now Barack Obama's headed off on vacation, 3 weeks of vacation in Hawaii, which I guess he does every year. He's from Hawaii. But it's a terrible time for the president to go to Hawaii, But there is a power play going on, as you know. There have been a lot of comments that really what the Democrats want to do is kind of break the knuckles of the Republicans, because they can cause a division within the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Let me just regroup and tell you one thing that's kind of interesting connected to this. The goal was, first of all, you know very well, because you talk about it all the time, there's class warfare going on here. The whole concept of getting the rich is an un-American concept, because rich has a very loose definition.
Mm-hmm.
If you're making $30,000 a year, someone making $80,000 a year is rich. The concept of rich and wealth used to be people who have millions of dollars and don't have to work, because the income that they make from those millions of dollars, which are wealth, earns them a living, and so they're, the quote-unquote idle rich.
And that, by the way, that's not looked at as earned income. And if they want to tax earned income, a guy like Warren Buffett, for instance, he's not going to get taxed on his millions. I mean, waged income, excuse me. Waged income. So, well, go ahead, because I think you're leading up to where this thing.
Basically, I'm just actually what I'm to prepare the ground. What I'm basically saying is, we have something un-American going on, and that is a party that is creating class warfare and jealousy and envy. They're sowing seeds of envy, and a lot of Americans are buying into it. It's a very dangerous concept, because the word rich can be redefined very easily. So anyway, here's the thing. They're talking about $800 billion increased revenue from the quote-unquote rich. Okay, that was and the concept was, the Democrats, is to raise the rates. Now, the Republicans have come back with an offer saying, look, we understand we need to increase revenue, but let us raise that same $800 billion by limiting deductions and closing loopholes. Okay? Now, guess what? The same amount of money, right? You'd think that the Democrats would say, oh, well, okay, we wanted to raise $800,000 basically from people who have financially advantage, and that's okay. But no, that's not what they want. They rejected that. They want the rates raised. Now, why do they insist on raising the rates when they could raise the same amount of money by closing loopholes and limiting deductions? Well, the bottom line is they know that there are a whole bunch of Republicans that have sworn not to raise taxes, that believe firmly, and of course I think they're right, that raising the rates will diminish our capacity to grow our way out of this recession. So there's a battle going on. The bottom line is the Democrats want to break the Republican Party, divide the Republican Party, and already it's starting to happen.
Yes, because Boehner's starting to get the pushback on some of his suggestions.
Right.
I'm just wondering if, let me ask you a question, and this is highly subjective, Bob, and I'm not trying to put you into a corner, but do you think Boehner's strong enough for this negotiation?
No, I fear he's not, and I don't know. You have to have a very solid core to withstand pressure. you know, that was an issue in my campaign because there's the whole issue of raising taxes here, you know, property taxes here in Josephine County. And at a certain point, you have to just make a committed decision to what you think is right, no matter what pressure you're going to come under. And but, you know, in fairness to Boehner, he's surrounded with a liberal media. He's in a liberal pressure cooker called Washington, D.C., where not only is the media liberal, but the whole social circuit is liberal. The political infrastructure is liberal. The bureaucracy is liberal. And he's trying to hold the line. And, of course, he's worried that Republicans will be made to appear to only care about the rich, you know, and will let middle-class taxes go up in order to protect the rich.
All right, we're talking about the fiscal cliff or the fiscal slope and some of the things that are going on, and our concern as to whether or not the Republicans can hold strong here. What if, there's two strategies here that, for consideration, Bob. What if you remember when Prime Minister Barack was Prime Minister of Israel before, now he's head of the military there, and he's going to not go for re-election. But do you remember when he went to Palestinians and he said, all right, you guys can have the whole West Bank? And they said no. And,
no, I don't, you know, I'd forgotten that.
Yeah, and they said no, which was the stunning moment that exposed who they really are. They don't want a place. They want the whole country. They want to push Israel off into the ocean. So what if John Boehner goes to the president and say, all right, President Obama, tell us what you want and we'll vote it. Just say, we'll just give you anything you want. Tell us what it is, we'll vote it in. And call us bluff. Or the other thing is that they could do is, he could go before the American people and call a news conference prime time and say, folks, I refuse to allow this House, which is responsible for the fiscal issues of this country, to spend more than it's taking in. There's not one of you that would run your household like that, and we are not going to raise revenue so that we can raise expenditures and still have a $1 trillion gap every year. It ain't going to happen. We're stopping the negotiation until this administration plays by the rules, and it's called balanced budget. And walk off.
Wow. Well, you know, that's the battle, because, you know, a lot of people are predicting that we're going to be at the $1 trillion a year. Of course, we'd be up around $20 trillion in debt. That's not counting unfunded debt, you know, Medicare and et cetera. But the scary part of this, Perry, as you know, is that a lot of people are question whether Barack Obama is really interested in solving our economic problems, because the more economic trouble we're in, the easier it is for the left to rabble-rouse, you know, to create panic from people who are unemployed and, you know, create dependency on the government. I mean, you remember the Cloward-Piven, well, we've talked about it. I mean, it was back in the 1960s, a long time ago. But these two professors at Columbia, and one of them is still alive, wrote Cloward and Piven. They were married, and they wrote a leftist theory that the way to break the country was to grow the debt, grow the, you know, get as many people on welfare as you possibly could until you broke the system. In other words, the goal was not to help people. So we have to remember that the left comes at this whole situation with a very different view. That's the danger. The jury's out if Barack Obama is like that, but I fear that he may well be, that he may not be interested in solving our economic problems.
All right, now let's step back and take a look at what happened in the election. He won re-election. He won with a fairly significant margin. And yeah, we could I guess we could Monday morning quarterback the turnout and who voted and how they voted and all that, and see all the exit polls. Bottom line is he won.
Yeah.
And he can thumb his nose at everything. I mean, he can get what he wants to the Senate. He could tell all the Republicans in the House, big deal, I'll just wait and blow it over. And he can continue to do things that are unconstitutional because nobody seems to have the fortitude to call him on the carpet for abuse of powers.
Yeah, and you know, the thing, the part of that personality profile, which you and I have talked about, because I come a little bit from that place, is I think a long time ago I told you my favorite phrase when I was in high school, because of my troubled youth, my favorite phrase was, I don't care. In other words, you
Right.
can't touch me. I don't care. Whatever happens, I don't care. And Barack Obama has a little of that. It is a kind of in-your-face, I don't care. Hey, the idea of going on a 3-week vacation in Hawaii,
Yeah.
if we run into problems, the stock market could drop. People could drop 1,000 points. You don't know.
Yeah.
People's 401ks could be in big trouble. People's portfolios, those who are invested in the stock market. This is playing with people's future. This is real.
I know it is, but
not,
we still put him back in the office to continue down this road.
I know.
So have we done an ideological, sociological shift in the mindset of this country, where it's possible, Bob? Maybe what we're saying to ourselves here is that the vast majority of Americans don't think below the surface, and therefore they don't really believe there's a problem, and that somehow this guy's going to pull us out. And at the end of the day, I want my government check. I mean,
Yeah.
we may be over the cliff already, because if you remember, they created that commission a couple of years ago to avoid the cliff, and the commission came up with nothing, so here we are now.
Yeah, and then it was ignored.
Right.
Barack Obama's own commission came forward and told him what to do, and he just ignored it. Well, that goes back to why it's important to have Jim DeMint at the head of the Heritage Foundation, because it seems to me, in watching, as much as I was able to watch the national election, I was obviously busy with my own campaign, but the two things that seem to be missing in depth, to your point that you're making, among the average voters, is an understanding of free market capitalism and an understanding of what the tyranny of state control. In other words, I don't think the public schools especially are doing a very good job in teaching what is free market capitalism, what is capitalism.
You don't really expect that to happen in public schools, do you?
Actually, I do.
Well, you're hoping that it would, but I mean, and then you certainly don't expect that to be taught in colleges, unless you go off to some MBA school, and even then it would be doubtful.
The sad thing is that you're right, but that's sad. In other words, we have a country that depends on the miracle of free market capitalism, the fact that if each of us works hard, makes decisions according to our conscience, builds a strong family, and invests in the future, that the collective of 300 million people doing that creates a dynamic economic engine. And we need to understand that. The other element to this that is very serious is that I don't think the average person understands what tyranny is. In other words, what it is, the slow growth of state control, that slowly, you don't get to make decisions about what you're going to do with your health and with your life. And we're in the early stages of that. I mean, some would say later stages. But those are the two, I don't know what your concerns are, but to me, those are the two big things that if we understood them better, we would not have reelected the Democratic Party.
Well, I think there is somewhat of a marketing mistake that was made in the whole campaign. Republicans always go for the head to get to the heart, and Democrats always go to the heart to get to the head, and that's why the Republicans continue to lose. And you have to process what I just said, but it is a psychological truth that if you go to the head to get the heart, you will lose. If you go to the heart,
and you've been talking about that for years. It's too bad the Republican Party
they just don't get that.
You're right.
But let's step back. God allowed this. I don't know if it's God sponsored, but I don't think God woke up on Wednesday morning, November 7th, and fell off the throne and said, "Oh my, it didn't quite go the way I planned." He will use this. Now, here's the question: do you think the faith community is prepared to do what it takes to save this country? And I'm not talking political here. I'm talking 100% spiritual.
Yeah, I tell you, that subject is a truly exciting subject. I think that we could be near an awakening because things could get so bad. I think part of it's really a core question. The short answer, and I would include quickly, I'll make a comment about politics because I just went through it. I think it is so important for Christians to be involved in the political arena for one reason, or there are many others, but here's one key reason. People need to see someone in the political arena who gets hated and judged and doesn't hate and judge back.
Very well said.
That's very important.
Very well said. Because,
and to your point about community, that yes, we are in trouble as a country, and the hope of pulling it out is the church, capital C, expressing Christ's love in the community, in the ways we help people, in the ways we stand for what's right.
If we turn to God as our source, not Washington, D.C.,
right,
and not the system, and I'm not saying abandon it, but obviously it has failed. And Christians begin to shine because they have a peace in the midst of the storm. It's called Christ within you, the hope of glory.
Right on.
And then the other one is that he starts to meet your need through supernatural circumstances because you see him as your source, not the government or some entitlement. Then it'll become the greatest witness tool ever, and we'll have people drawn to the church, and we can do what we are really on earth to do, and that is to make them citizens of heaven.
There you go.
Hey, buddy, thank you.
This might really, truly, you and I have been saying this for years because things have been getting worse and worse, but this is really a moment. Yeah. Because if we go into a double dip recession, not to mention if the the American dollar collapses or something really huge, it's going to be the Christians in the community that are going to be, as you so well just said, our peace in the storm, and are there to help other people and to minimize panic and to be there to express Christ's love in the community.
Bob,
that's our great calling.
We're proud of you. Thank you for running. Thank you for taking the hits. Thank you for running it above board. I know God has his hand on you and Wendy, and great days ahead, and I look forward to having you back in the studio soon. And if I don't see you, Merry Christmas. We love you, pal.
Thank you so much, Perry. Merry Christmas to everyone.